Okay, we're doing this learning in memory of Tzvi ben Ari HaKohen.
Okay. Shlomo, you asked me to talk about the giants of Tzfat. You would expect to start out with the Ari HaKadosh. Okay, who am I to say who's the biggest giant of Tzfat? Okay, we're all little people compared to these giants. But if you ask me, if he would live today, Rabbi Yosef Karro, okay? Some say he lived in our generation as Rav Ovadia Yosef. Okay? Rav Yosef Karro was Rav Ovadia Yosef's mentor. If Rav Yosef Karro lived today, he would get the Israel Prize for Jewish Studies. The Ari wouldn't, because no one would know who he is except for the 30, 40 people around him. Because the Ari's greatness, okay, was only understood after he passed away. And since he passed away so early, so young, before the age of 40, he didn't have the time, objectively, he didn't have the time to write what he thought and said and taught. Rabbi Yosef Karro had the time and spent the time writing and also advising and teaching and even living with his wives. He had a number of wives, descendants, yes. And
not at the same time.
That's not at the same time.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
Always don't know.
And that's why Rabbi Yosef Karro has about 10 biographies written. Okay, one coming out just recently. I couldn't bring the 10. I have some of the books at home. I couldn't bring them all here. But a recent book came out in Hebrew. Okay, just on Rabbi Yosef Karro. History, Halacha, and Kabalah. And Kabalah also. Wow. Rabbi Yosef Karro, Kabalah. Magid Mei Shalim. Of course. So we have these each biography is hundreds of pages. The problem is for me, who wants to learn from this, that there are arguments between the people here on many of the details and how many wives he had. And we don't even know the names of his wives. But since he lived, Baruch Hashem, for relatively a long life, 87, today in Tzfat that's young. Okay, we're Ziknei Tzfat. Okay, today it's young. But then 87, not bad, Paz. And Rabbi Yosef Karro certainly was the most professional rabbi who ever lived in Tzfat. The one who wrote the most, who published the most. He was like a professor and the head of the yeshiva, and he was known all over the world, even during his lifetime. Okay? He was well known throughout the Jewish world. So that's why best maybe starting with him. He passed away in Tzfat. He didn't live all his life in Tzfat. Okay? 47 years. Okay, he lived before coming to Tzfat. He was born in 1488 in Spain, or maybe Portugal, and 4 years after already the expulsion of Spain. And we don't know exactly all the details, exactly when the family left. And I'm not going to go all into the arguments between the different historians. What was his exact route? His father, Ephraim, he learned and studied under his father, Rav Ephraim Karro. He had a famous, well-known uncle, Yitzchak Karro, another rabbi. And he was lucky in that he was a little child. And so he was able to grow up in cities, in Turkey especially, where he could sit and study and learn with other rabbis, not under an atmosphere of inquisition. So, and that, he was lucky. Abarbanel, for instance, Abarbanel was in Spain, but, many of his years he was in Spain, and then he left. So, as a child, he left as a little child, and he grew up in other cities in the Ottoman Empire, and until he was 47, he went from place to place. He lived in the important Jewish centers in Turkey, in Adrianople, Edirne today. That's where he started working, writing the Beit Yosef. That he wrote for 30 years until he finished this great compilation. That was his big encyclopedia, the Beit Yosef. The Shulchan Aruch is concised from it. And he started writing that already in Adrianople. And he was in Istanbul for a while also, I guess, Kushta. Maybe not living there, but he used to go there to the library. And he lived a number of years in Saloniki, which was the biggest Jewish community then in the world. It was the New York of then, okay, early 16th century. Many Jews came from Spain to Turkey. Turkey welcomed the Jews then. And Rabbi Yosef Karro lived in these places. He studied, he taught. He was already a well-known teacher. He had his own Beit Midrash in Saloniki already in the 1530s, 1520s, 1530s. And we know that I'm going to give the order of his personal life according to the biography of Holy Alshech Shul. It's only 600-700 pages. It's different than the biography written here, okay, brought by Yaron Ben Naeh, very prominent historian and expert on the Jews of Turkey, okay. Chagai Peli and Moshe Idel, Professor Moshe Idel, writes here about the Kabbalistic side of Rabbi Yosef Karro. He's not the only one. So this is also an important book. But it seems that he got married. He married a woman, the daughter of the rabbi of one of the rabbis in Adrianople, from the Sabah family, Samach Bet Ayin. We don't know her name. They had some children. 3 of the 4 children passed away in a plague in Saloniki in the early 1530s. How do we know that? They found their graves in Saloniki. Wow. Okay? Boena, David, and Yitzchak. Boena, I think, was the mother of Rabbi Yosef Karro. She passed away, so they called the daughter after. We don't know the wife, the name. I would love to know the names of the wives. Okay, sometimes we know the names of women from the tombs we find here in Tzfat. But if you go down to the Yosef Karro tomb, you don't see there the tombs of his family. You see other tombs there without names, without nothing. Maybe we don't know. So anyway, it seems they passed away in Saloniki, the wife also, and 3 of the 4. That's what we know. And then he remarried. It seems he remarried a woman who is the daughter of the rabbi of Nikopol. Nikopol is a small town on the Danube River in Bulgaria. The Danube River separates Bulgaria in the south and Romania to the north. I went to Nikopol to see what's left of Yosef Karro. Nikopol and Tzfat are twin cities. Ilan Shochat didn't know what Nikopol is, but the mayor of Nikopol called up Ilan Shochat, let's be a twin city. He didn't know what this Nikopol is, so he asked me, and I told Nikopol, that's where Yosef Karro came from, to Tzfat. So he was there for a few years. The mayor of Nikopol, who's not Jewish, he told me, sure, Rabbi Yosef Karro was with us for 10 years. He has a whole wall in this small local museum there.
This is in Bulgaria.
In Bulgaria.
Wow.
The Jews, there are no Jews there left. So the people of Nikopol are very into Rabbi Yosef Karro. They're proud of Rabbi Yosef Karro being a citizen in their town. He was probably there for maybe 2 years. But they maintain that he was there 10 years. And they know exactly the point at the house where his house was, or where his Beit Midrash was. So he's in Nikopol, and with his wife, the daughter of the rabbi of Nikopol, Chaim Bulgari, or El Balag, or El Bulgari, Rabbi Chaim. He's mentioned because Yosef Karro mentions his fathers-in-law in his works. So that's why we know how we know the families that he married into, but we don't know the names of the women themselves. So at least I don't know. I don't think anybody knows the name of the women.
So there's a prominent community in Nikopol.
Yes. I'll have to say, though, that Yaron Ben-Ae, my friend and mentor, famous historian, in this book, he comes up with an idea and saying, Nikopol in Bulgaria, there was also Nikopol in Turkey. There were a few cities called Nicopolis. I don't agree with him. I think I told him I don't agree with him. But I think Nikopol in Bulgaria is mentioned once, maybe twice, in the Shutim, in the works of Halacha. But that's what he wrote here in his biography of Rabbi Yosef Karro. But for all I know, I think it's more reasonable to think that Nikopol is in the Bulgaria. It's not so far. Bulgaria was under the Ottoman Empire. And so he went north because that's where his wife came from. So he went up there for 2-3 years. But an important thing happened when he was in Saloniki. A very important thing happened there, even though some people say it happened in Nikopol. The most important a very important event in the history of Tzfat took place there. And I'm talking about the Tikkun Leil Shavuot. How do you say Tikkun Leil Shavuot in English? The Tikkun on Shavuot, on Pentecost night. I think Pentecost, right? That's the name.
It wasn't happening in
Shavuot.
Turkey? It wasn't happening in Turkey?
It happened in Turkey, כן. בטח, לא פה.
No,
So
but you say in Bulgaria, yes?
The Tikkun Leil Shavuot that took place in the presence of Rabbi Yosef Karro and a very important person that he met and became his chevruta, Rabbi Shlomo Elkabetz. They met in Saloniki, and one view is that in Saloniki, 1533, there took place was the Tikkun Leil Shavuot, when the night of Shavuot, they learned Mishnayot and things, and all of a sudden the Magid, the angel mentor, started talking to them. He didn't reveal himself, they didn't see him. But he or she started talking. The Magid, that's the Magid that revealed himself and told them, go up to Eretz Israel. This is the first tikkun that we know about. That we know who took place, okay.
That's why it's called tikkun, because it's not just that we're being mitakin Kabalah Torah, but it was a tikkun neshamot.
Yes, tikkun, but also, although it's first mentioned in the Zohar, the tikkun al-Shavuot didn't begin then, but we don't know, we don't have witnesses to it, to any tikkun before this one.
And the Magid Meshalim revealed himself to both of them, not just to Rabbi Yosef Karro.
Magid Meshalim writes, it's written in the Magid. Magid Meshalim is the mystical diary of Rabbi Yosef Karro, written by Rabbi Yosef Karro afterward. And of course it's mentioned there, but the tikkun, the whole story of the tikkun, we know from the epistle of Rabbi Shlomo Elkabetz. If you want to read about this in English, So if you go in to the internet and you write this name, More Altshuler, she has a whole internet site with articles in Hebrew and English on the Tikkun and on the history of Rabbi Yosef Karro. Okay? Tikkun Leil Shavuot Rabbi Yosef Karro on the epistle of Shlomo HaLevi El Kabetz. Since he wrote the Igeret, the epistle, he wrote a diary of what happened there. The diary was printed in the Shla, in the book of the Shla.
Really?
Rabbi Yishayahu Levi Horowitz. It was printed in the Shla, and that's how we have it today, printed in the Sidurim, in the books, in the Machzorim of Shavuot. It's printed there. The Tikkun took place either in Saloniki or in Nikopol. More Altshuler says Saloniki, others say Nikopol, some say maybe even Adrianopol, some even think maybe in Istanbul. It didn't take place in Tzfat. But this is what brought them to Tzfat.
The Maggid.
Because the angel, the mentor, the Mishnah, the Neshama, the Maggid, this Maggid told them, go up to Tzfat. No, he didn't say go to Tzfat, go up to Eretz Israel.
But they met in Nikopol.
They met first in Saloniki.
Okay.
Okay, and according to one view, the Tikkun was in Saloniki. Afterward, Yosef Karro went to Nikopol. He got sick, and Shlomo Elkabetz came to Nikopol. And the Maggid reappeared to them. Not reappearing vision, but he talked to them and reminded them, remember what I told you? You should have gone up to Eretz Yisrael. You didn't do it yet. Oy vavoy. That's why you're sick, Rabbi Yosef Karro. So in 1536, they came up to Tzfat. Some say Rabbi Shlomo Elkabetz, good question. Some say Elkabetz came before. We have a whole drasha, a whole sermon that Elkabetz gave in a shul in Saloniki, a goodbye sermon before he went up to Eretz Israel. So most say that he came up first, and Yosef Karro came up later, a little later, through Adrianopol. In 1536, I think all agree they're in Tzfat. 1536, I like to say, is the year that begins the golden age of Tzfat. Not that there weren't rabbis before. Then they came here. Beirav was here, Rabbi Yaakov Beirav, and others. Tzfat was already the most important Jewish center, and that's why maybe they came to Tzfat. Okay? Besides, I have to remind you, or tell you, there were certain years that they believed are years that are ready for the Mashiach. One of those years is 1540. 300 years before 1540 is 1240, which is the year that the Crusaders started building the Crusader Castle. 1240 is, in the Hebrew calendar, year one of the 5th millennium. Okay? Year one. They do it like, we just had a millennium now, right? Just now, 24 years ago. The Jewish millennium, 5000, is 1240 CE. 1540 is 300 years after. It's Shnat Shin. Okay? Shin. Many Jews thought Shnat Shin, is the year of the Mashiach. And so we also have this push for Jews coming to Eretz Israel, welcoming the Mashiach, maybe in 1540. There were other years. The Ari thought a little differently. There's also 1570, okay, Shin Lamed or Shin Lamed Hei, Shla, Shiloh. Each year is a year good for the Mashiach for us, right? Okay? But there were certain years that Jews thought that those are special years like Shnat Shin 1540. So Rabbi Yosef Karro and Elkabetz came to Tzfat with their families. We don't know their names, the names of the women. Rabbi Yosef Karro seemingly comes with the women that he married from Bulgaria. He comes to Tzfat, and he lives in Tzfat from 1536 and until 1575. Shnat Shin Lamed Hei. And he's buried in Tzfat, and we all know where his tomb is. No arguments about that. There are other rabbis that we're not so sure if that's the correct tomb. Elkabetz, if you hear one of my lectures on the cemetery Tzfat, so we're doing research there. So some say that the tomb of Elkabetz next to the Ari is not in the right position, place. So these are questions that Bezrat Hashem, before Eliyahu comes, will have answers for them. But in any case, they both came to Tzfat. Rabbi Yosef Karro, the great leader in Halacha, but also Kabalah, and Shlomo Elkabetz, the great Kabbalist. When they came, they found here already, they were greeted by Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. And the Alshech was here also already.
He was already, I thought he came with...
The Alshech, I think, was here already. Sure, he's here already. He's also from Turkey. He was born in Adrianople.
Because I heard he got the smicha from Yosef Karro, so I assumed that...
Okay, but doesn't mean he wasn't here.
Right.
Okay, and Alshech gave smicha to Rabbi Chaim Vital.
Yes.
So we had, the rabbis were here already. But the golden age began when Yosef Karro and Elkabetz started coming, and Elkabetz started formulating things that the Chadudin, Kabbalah Shabbat. Yosef Karro started making order here in Tzfat with the yeshiva. And the Psika, the Sfaradim. Oh, there was also a little balagan, because we had the Mustarabim, we had the locals here, with their minhagim, with their customs, and here's the great rabbi coming and changing things. But he was very lenient with them.
Mm.
He didn't force anything on anybody, Rabbi Yosef Karro. That was part of his greatness, I think. He told people, do what you're doing all the time. Keep your minhagim. True that by us we do like this and this. In our shul we do like this. But unless it was like against halacha, he respected the locals here. And that was part of his greatness. Okay, most of the rabbis here are Sfaradim, but most of the locals, at least in the first half of the 16th century, most of the people in Tzfat were Mustarabim, the locals, who were here for generations.
What does Mustarabim?
Mustarabim are Jews who talk Arabic, and they look like Arabs. Their complexion. They're here all these years. Zinati. And people that still live here in Pekin and in Tzfat. We have the Levi family, the Levi from the Ariya Sfaradi. They're at least half Mustarabim. Okay, Levi, okay? Levi, Eli Levi, Eliyahu Levi, the Gabbai of the Ariya Sfaradi. And so they came. I want to, though, the last few minutes, I have to talk about his history, because you could talk for hours, not with me, on all his compilations and all that. But here in Israel, the second wife passed away. And when he got older, he married a young lady. Maybe he got married already in his 70s or 80s. In any case, when he was 82 years old, this young wife of his gave birth to Yehuda. About 1570, maybe the same year that the Ari came to Tzfat. So that's the year that Yehuda was born, with his third wife. But according to the Magid Meshalim, he had one or two more wives. But these one or two more wives only had a soul without a body. So should we count them? Are they counted as wives? Only soul. All depends if you ask a woman or a man. All depends what the women with the soul. That's what the Magid Mishalim gives us, a lot of information that's hard to fathom. In any case, though, this last wife of his was a young lady. How do I know? Because she gave birth in 1570, but she was still alive in 1607. She was interviewed in Tzfat by Rabbi Shlomo Shlomil in 1607. Wow. This is 25 more years after her husband passed away in 1575. In 1607, she gave an interview and talked about her husband, Rabbi Yosef Karro, who passed away 30 years ago. Wow. So this lady gave birth to Yehuda, who continued to publish Rabbi Yosef Karro's works, Avkat Rochel, Kesef Mishneh, the Magid Mishal, all these.
You wrote Kesef Mishneh?
Rabbi Yosef Karro, Kesef Mishneh, of course.
Published it.
No, I think no, but it was already printed in his time, Yosef Karro. Avkat Rochel, I'm not sure, I think it was printed also in his time. Avkat Rochel is his Shut, Sheilot V'Tshuva. So, this young lady continued the line. But
her name was Rachel.
We don't know her name. We know her father's name. Rabbi Zcharia Zichtel Ashkenazi. That's a big chidush. She was a young lady. We do that all the time here. We get old. We can marry young ladies, no problem. Here in Tzfat even today. But the chidush was that she was an Ashkenaziyah. And maybe that's one of the reasons why the Karro family today, even in Tzfat, they're all Ashkenazim. They even daven Nusach Ashkenaz. You know, lo aleinu. I'm saying, no, I say Hasidim. But Nusach Ashkenaz also, it's okay. So the Karro family today, we know the Karro family, Yotam, the Karro family. Yotam Karro says he may be a descendant of Yitzchak Karro, the uncle of Yosef Karro. But on the way down, the descendants became Ashkenazim. So the Karro family today, Karro family, Peles family, many families were connected to Yosef Karro. They're mostly Ashkenazim. Yosef Karro passed away in 1575, Shin Lamed Hey. And he left a big vacuum. The Alshech was still with us for years. So we still say, though, 1536 to 1575 was the golden age. The Alri passed away in 1572. The Alshech, Baruch Hashem, kept going. And he was like the last great rabbi of the generation. He lived into the 17th century. He was from the old generation who kept Tzfat going at even 25, 30 years after Yosef Karro passed away. Okay.
Hazak u'baruch, Hazak u'baruch. Thank you so much.